kick out my AI notes. It's like a virus. I don't know how to get rid of it.
Oh, okay.
Hmm.
It's recording now. Oh, Rich, thank you, my friend. I'm glad you said something. Because if people are having trouble getting in, I want to be able to make the recording available. Well, Nina, I think we should jump in and start off. Uh,
Okay.
Somebody is unmuted. Oh no, there we
Can you
go.
mute everybody?
I can. There it is. Okay.
Okay.
All righty. Hey, thank you for coming. It's just, as far as I'm concerned, this is a wonderful way to celebrate the holidays, is to get together with friends and uh, just have some nice sharing. So thank you for joining us. Uh, I would like to introduce my daughter, Nina. Uh, I've known Nina for a long time. We go way back, don't we, Nina?
Way back. Yep. Right,
Uh,
right to my beginning.
Nina was 13 when I learned the principles, and I was so ardent to share them with her that I turned her off to them completely. And I had to promise I would never talk about thought or moods again unless she asked me. And 6 months later, she asked me. And then she had a massive insight that changed her. She had just turned 14, and she changed so dramatically that every one of our friends came up to us and said, "Oh my God, what's happened to Nina?" And at that point, she became my teacher. Uh, I couldn't wait for her to come home from school and tell me more stories about what she was seeing and learning. So it's a delight to have Nina here. She's had quite a career. Uh, She worked for her first year after college in a school for autistic kids, worked with families. Then she moved to Hawaii at the Three Principles Counseling Center run by Christine Heath. She worked there for a couple years with autistic kids and their families, as well as families at risk, would go into homes of families that were really having difficulty and help them. Uh, then she became involved, got yet another degree, and became involved in working in sustainability and green building. She became a lead trainer for leaders in environmental and energy development
Leadership in energy and environmental design.
design.
Yeah.
Okay. And and she became a mom. She worked in schools, helping out. She's been very active. She's quite the athlete. She loves trail running. Uh, After doing a whole lot of different marathons and triathlons and things like that. And now she has once again opened her Three Principles coaching practice, Mind Springs, it's called. And it's just an absolute delight. I just love being with Nina. I love hearing her share what she's learned. So you're in for a treat today.
Oh. Well, thank you, Dad. Um, and I think most of you probably know my father, Dr. Dicken.bettinger. And yeah, when he started learning the principles, um, we all wanted nothing to do with it. I think that the phrase that my younger brother and I used was, "Don't do your psychology on us." We didn't want to hear anything about it, but yes, I did slowly see huge changes in him that I think at that young age I wasn't really I wasn't deeply aware of them, but it changed the feeling enough that I got curious. And when I got curious, and was able to hear how our thinking creates our experience in the moment, and creates our feeling, the insight that I had was after a classmate made a really rude comment to me. I was in a low mood and thinking about it all day. And then at the end of the day, I had this realization that the only thing making me feel bad in the moment was that I kept thinking about what had happened and that I was keeping it alive. And after that, it really. Oh.
You want to go in mute?
I hear a little guy here. We need
I
to mute
do.
that. Yeah.
Uh, uh, I'm looking for.
Okay.
I can't find that.
You can't find the mute. Well,
Keep going.
okay. Um, So, yes, my dad said that I about a year or so ago, I started my own coaching practice. I had gone through a divorce and I was working with Christine Heath and, talking about my purpose and, what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. And she said, Nina, why don't you start counseling again? And, um, and so I did, and it's been really wonderful. Hey, Dad, can we figure out how to mute people? It's really distracting for me.
Yeah, I muted.
I can see two people who are not muted and I can hear stuff.
Yeah, I'm getting there. Sorry, baby.
That's okay. Okay, there we go.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks. Um, so my dad and I did a webinar a while back, and it was entitled Living Life All In. And I was so excited about that topic. I was newly divorced and um, I was seeing the range of highs and lows that we have in our life. And I wanted to embrace it all. It all just felt okay to me. Like I definitely had some low times, but it felt natural and it felt good. And I was so excited to talk about that topic. And then we chose this topic for this webinar, Lost and Found. And there was a spark there. But then as it got closer, I was like feeling a little discouraged. I was like, oh, geez, how are we going to talk about this? Lost and found. And so I just got kind of quiet and I realized that being lost and found is completely normal and natural. And it's something that happens to each one of us every day, all day, that we go up and down. And in that realization, it just was a relief. And that's how I got excited about what we would talk about today, because it is normal, it is natural, and so I'm really excited to share with you a little bit about when we feel lost in our lives and in our feelings, and then how we come back to a nice feeling in ourselves and how we find that and regain our balance. Um, so right when I had this sort of new excitement about talking, about this webinar, I had to send an email to someone I had to give them information that I knew would be hard for them to hear. And I started feeling anxious about it. And I knew in that moment, and I felt a little lost. I felt like, oh God, I know I need to send this. It's the right thing to do, but I was feeling really sort of off balance about it. And and then I had this realization about being lost and found. And I knew that I was just a little lost in the moment and my thinking was off. And so I went and I did a little workout because that's something that for me will distract me and get me back in a better place. And then I was fine. And then with the realization that it was just my own thinking creating my anxious feeling and that thinking would shift, I got found again. And I came home. I settled. And that was the same insight that I had when I was 14, that I was creating my experience. And so when we have an understanding of being able to come back to that, even when we get lost, it's okay. It's like um, right now we're having some pretty gross weather here in the Pacific Northwest. It's been really windy and raining, and we're having flooding. And right now I'm looking out my window and it's just gray. But I don't doubt that the sun is still in the sky. And that knowledge is the same as for each person, each individual. We know that we have well-being. Each person has well-being in them. And that is their home, and that is how we get found over and over again. And that's what resilience is. Um, do you want to share a little, Dad? And then I have a few other things.
Oh, I'd be glad to, sweetie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can relate to that. How easy it is. I mean, for me, it's as easy as I watch the news, and a lot of the things on the news I have a reaction to. And I used to, once I had a reaction, I used to think a lot about what was going on in the world, and it really just kept alive that feeling in me. And one day I had the insight, when I feel that reaction, no matter what situation I'm in, when I feel tension in my body, it's not a curse, it's an opportunity, it's an invitation. I love that word, invitation. It's like an alarm going off to wake me back up out of the thinking I'm doing. Isn't that? I love how we're designed as human beings. I used to think stress and tension and upset and having reactions was a problem that I had to work on. So I'd think about it and try and fix it, or I'd try and change something in the world so I could feel better. And what a beautiful thing to realize that the system is working perfectly. If we feel stress, it's not a problem, it's an invitation to come back to the present moment. And then as our thinking quiets down, which it will naturally when we're in the present moment, I've often used the metaphor of a snow globe. When you are in the present moment, is like setting the snow globe down. You don't have to try and quiet your thinking down. It will quiet down. It will pass. When Nina goes into her workout and she takes her mind off of what she had been thinking about, those other thoughts will just flow through, pass, disappear, quiet down on their own. And so then I had the idea, I saw that even deeper. So when I watch the news and get upset, sometimes right while I'm watching the news, I can just quiet down and get back into a more peaceful feeling. Now I know I'm bringing more peace into the world.
Mm.
That's how the world changes, is what we bring into the world via consciousness. That's how we change the world. We don't change the world by bringing upset into the world. We bring more upset, more upset, more upset. We change the world by bringing love and compassion into the world. So then I started seeing every time I have a reaction or get upset, it's an invitation to bring more love into the world. So my teacher, Sydney Banks, was look within, which means stop looking out and thinking about what's outside of you. Just look within means come back to the present moment. It's the most natural thing in the world. That's it. If I followed any of you around during the day, I could point out plenty of times when you became present.
Yeah.
But we then tend to think over that rather than enjoy the present moment. We start thinking about the future, or we start thinking about the past, and you know what? They don't even exist. There's only this present moment. We have memories that make us think that there's a past or a future, but they don't exist. They're created by thought. So we come back to the present moment, and then as our mind quiets down, that inner light shines through. We start to feel better. And then if we bring that feeling to other people, we're bringing more love and understanding into the world. So I still watch the news because I want to know what's going on in the world. But I don't want to become more bitter, more discouraged, more frightened, more fearful, more angry, more reactive. Now I use every one of those feelings as an invitation to rest in the present moment, go about my day, trusting that my thinking will quiet down and pass. And when it does, when I feel better, then in a sense, that's my intention. That's my intention to bring that feeling into the world, a smile, a touch, a kindness, a kind word. Could you imagine if everybody in the world did that? It would be a completely different world. I've seen it change relationships. That alone. We only have one job. We're filled with beautiful feelings. When our mind's clear, we feel feelings like peaceful. Peace of mind is just the absence of a lot of judgmental negative thinking. Peace of mind, when we quiet down, our senses become more alive. That's for me what happiness is. That's what allows me to enjoy the moment. And then I feel more connected to people when my mind quiets down. That's what love is. I feel that closeness, that connection. So I bring that feeling into the world. And it's a spiritual teaching. If you find that inner unconditional feeling and bring it into the world, give it away. To give is to receive. You get more of it. You get more of it. I just got an email 2 days ago from an old client that I hadn't seen for a long time. And he used to do, he's single and he's a very cute guy. Oh my gosh, he's so cute. My wife and I met him when we were at the conference in England. And oh my, he was so kind-hearted. But boy, would he worry about getting a relationship and being in a relationship. And he just spent so much time in his head. And he emailed me a while back, and I wrote him something to the effect of, if you quiet down and find that feeling inside and give it away, you'll be living a loving life. And I guarantee everything will work out for you. And he wrote back and he said, that's my whole intent at this point. To let go of thought, quiet down, find a nice feeling, and bring it to other people. Bring it to animals, bring it to pets, bring it to trees, bring it to life, and give it away. And then I just got this email 2 days ago where he said, oh my gosh, I was doing that and I met this amazing woman from Portugal and we fell in love and we just both are committed to doing nothing other than quieting down, finding nice feeling and giving it away. We're both committed to that. And after a while, it just became evident. Now we're married. We're living such a beautiful life. Now, this is not Pollyanna because I give the same message to people in bomb shelters in the Ukraine, the same message to people in the Middle East, the same message to people in war refugees in Africa. 2 nights ago, I spoke at a conference in Africa for pastors and for women, and it was women and pastors who had been touched deeply by the principles and were sharing what they had learned and how it was changing their view of life, bringing love alive, bringing light alive. The last thing I want to say, and I'll send it back to you, Neens, light is the oldest metaphor in our civilization for that feeling, that holiday feeling within. Light has been used as a metaphor, so I'm glad you, Nina, you used that metaphor. The sun is always there. Well, I'm telling you, the divine spark is within every one of you, no exception. And it's only when we're caught up in and holding on to our thinking that we innocently cover up that light, because I've seen no exceptions to this. Even when I worked with people in prison, there for violent offenses, when the human mind quiets down and head clears, it's clearing of judgmental thoughts, it's clearing of comparisons, it's clearing of thoughts about yesterdays and tomorrows. And when it does, people feel better. And when people feel better and bring it into the world, they do better. Whether it's at work or with your family or with your partner or your kids. That to me is, and I joke with my friends, I only have one job in life. It's not to be a parent. It's not to be a leader. It's not to be a teacher. It's to be someone who finds well-being inside and shares it. You can be in a hospital room paralyzed from the neck down and share that. You could be in a war zone and share that. And I've been in a war zone and discovered that that was just as true. You know why? Because it's spiritual. That light within can't be damaged or destroyed. So at this time of year, we celebrate, since it's the darkest time, we celebrate the coming of the light, coming home to that light, coming back to that light, and bringing that light, lightening up, not being so serious and heavy, falling out of thought over and over and again. Even if you have 10,000 reminders, thank God you have that many reminders to lighten up. Let go of the heavy thoughts. Let go of the discouragement, the upsets, the judgments, the shoulds, the have-tos. And when we do, we slow down. We become more present. And naturally, we become kinder. And we can then learn, as anybody can, to extend that feeling to the world and to other people.
Hmm.
And if anyone does that anywhere in the world, they're going to live a beautiful life. That's what I love about these, what we call the three principles. It brings us back to this simplicity. One problem, holding on to thought, thinking it's true, acting out of it. One problem, one cure being found is finding our true self, that quiet, deep feeling of well-being, touching that space and bringing it into the world. Being a light unto the world, bringing light into the darkness of your relationship, your family, your work, the craziness of the world. It's a way of maintaining our sanity in the face of horrific things that are happening. It's a way of keeping hope. Keeping hope so that we don't become discouraged. Light. I come back to light, the celebration of light, the lighting of candles, the putting lights on our trees, the North Star, the go to the light, follow the light. You are a being of light. That is truth. So that's what I've been thinking about, Neens.
Well, I love how you talk about when you get into that upset or reaction that you see it as an invitation.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to talk about how feelings can be our compass.
Mm.
And when we're talking about being lost and found, we can use our feelings as a compass to finding our way back home, just like my dad's been talking about, finding that light and that well-being. Because when I have feelings of anxiety or sadness or any uncomfortable feelings, I know that I'm lost. And when I'm lost, it's the byproduct of of focusing on the content of my thinking and believing the content. And so that's an opportunity for me. And when I can shift my focus from the content of my thinking to knowing that I'm the thinker, that makes all the difference. Even if I can't get out of that feeling, knowing that I'm creating the feeling that I have, that I'm the thinker, that I'm creating my experience, not something outside here, that brings me home. And that's resilience. Even if I don't get out of that bad feeling right away, it lets me. Sorry, my daughter's texting me, and hers are the only ones that come through. Um, so it, geez, Louise, she's stuck in traffic. Um, so speaking of like getting caught up, I'm seeing all these messages flashing, and it's taking me out of the feeling. Oh, geez, stop, Eva. Um,
Eva's
so
16.
she's 16. She's stuck in traffic on her way to her culinary arts program that she has to drive to every afternoon. Um, and I have my do not disturb on, but hers come through. So I keep seeing them flashing. And it's taking me out of the moment. So I'm going to just come back because I was focusing on the content of what she was saying, and it took me out of the nice feeling that I was in here with you all.
Can I
And
say something there, Neens?
yeah,
One time we asked Sid Banks, how come we all get lost so easily? What's the deal? I mean, aren't we spiritual beings? Why are we getting lost so easily? You know what he said? It surprised me. He said it's the most natural thing in the world. We're human beings. And as humans,
right? It's an old story that I've been old.
as human beings. We look, he says, we're spiritual beings born into a physical body. We open our eyes, we see things out there, and we start thinking about what we see. And before you know it, we're caught up in the story, just like happened for Nina just now.
Yeah.
Exactly what happens. We get looking out at things, we see physical things, we start thinking that we live in just purely a physical world, and we get lost. And so coming home is waking up to the fact that we're spiritual beings, not just physical beings. What does that mean? It means when we quiet down, we're connected to a deeper life energy that's full of an intelligence that knows how to lift our spirits and guide us to be loving, compassionate people. And we're all connected to that. So I loved his answer. It's the most natural thing in the world. We're human beings. The human part of us gets caught up in the physical, and then we wake back up to our true self, which is our connection to something greater.
Yeah. Well, that was a huge insight that I had this past year was that when we're in different states of mind, when we're going up and down, we are just working exactly as we're designed to work. And that for me took the pressure off of being in a low mood. It took the pressure off feeling judgmental about my negative feelings. When I knew that it was just working exactly how it's supposed to work. I have a thought and it creates a feeling. And so when I was having negative thoughts, I'm going to have negative feelings. And when I'm having negative thoughts and believing them, I'm not going to see it. I'm going to get fooled. But when I see it and realize I'm the thinker, that brings me back into that nice feeling that my dad's talking about. And I realized that when I focus less on the content of my thinking, when I don't buy into it as much, and when I come back to the present moment, I'm more content. So the less I focus on the content, the more content I am. And I have a great story about this that involves my dad. Um, a number of years ago, my family went through a really tough year. You know, there was just a lot going on that was challenging. And I remember saying to my dad, you know, that was the hardest year of my life. And my dad had a reaction to that. He got really upset with me saying, "How come you didn't do anything? You know, we know all these three P people. You could have gotten help." And he got really upset and we got off that call and I went off for a run in the woods. Because that's a way that I know that I can usually come. It's not a technique, but it's a way that I usually can clear my head. I'm focused on the trail. You know, I can't be thinking about too much. And while I was running, it occurred to me and that even though it had been a really hard year, through that time, I knew that I was creating my experience. I knew that it was how I was thinking about it, which was how I felt. And even though it was hard, I had that little bit of understanding that I took with me. And it allowed me to move through that year gracefully. And so I called my dad, and he was in REI shopping, and I told him that. And I said, "Dad, you know, even though it was a really hard year, I knew that I was creating my own experience and so it was okay." And that's the part about finding yourself. Finding that good feeling is that you know you're okay, even when you feel bad. And so that was a really, I like to think about that as resilience. That when we go down into low states and we know that we're creating it, that's resilience because it allows us to move through it more easily and more gracefully. We don't get stuck as much. and we can find our way home back to a nice feeling.
When Nina called me up, and as soon as she reminded me, even though it's been a really hard year, I've maintained my resilience. As soon as she said that, I just completely relaxed and said, "Oh my God, you're right, Nina." I knew she was fine at that point. I knew she was fine. See, well-being doesn't mean you're always in a good feeling. Well-being means you understand that at times every human being drops into a low mood. I consider that like the psychological exhale. We inhale, we exhale. Exhale is not bad or wrong, it's part of the system. So high and low quality thought comes through our head. We only get into trouble when we grab on to thought that creates tension.
Mm.
But the fact that it comes through, so having well-being means you've learned how to go through your downtimes well. If you know you're crazy, you're not crazy. If you know that you're in a low mood and your thinking is off, you won't be tempted to act on it. That's being loving.
Yeah.
It's like when you have a cold, being loving is not sneezing on people. That's being loving. So when you're in a really low mood, if you know you're in a low mood, you don't sneeze it on people. You wait and allow your mind to settle as best you can. And none of us get to do that perfectly. None of us. And that's why Sid would not talk about love unless he talked about forgiveness. And the forgiveness is very simple. We all screw up. And rather than being hard on ourselves and judgmental and hard on other people and being judgmental, when we have judgmental thoughts, if we hold on to them, we're the only ones who suffer. And if you let go of judgmental thoughts, that's all forgiveness is very simple. It's very simple. Forgiveness brings us back to a nice feeling. Forgiveness is the release of thoughts that create this feeling of judgment about ourselves or the world. It's a beautiful thing. Then there's never a time when forgiveness doesn't make sense. If you're driving your car and you get rain on your windshield, it always makes sense to clear it away so you can see better. When we clear away the thoughts we're caught up in, it just brings us back to clarity. And when we have greater clarity, we make better decisions, we do better, we respond to life better.
I was I was working with a young woman the other day, and we were talking. She had some anxiety and depression, and so we were talking about worry and how worrying is just making up thoughts about what might happen and believing them, and then feeling you get that worried, anxious feeling. And it's really interesting. Penn State did a study about worry, and it showed that 90% of the time, the things that we worry about don't happen. I think it was even 91% of the time. And when those things do actually happen, 30% of the time, it's not as bad as we thought it would be. So to me, this shows like something pretty powerful, a few things. Our minds are these incredible tools that can make up anything, and we can feel anything. But two, that worry is not a productive way of thinking. And so I was sharing with this young woman about this, and she said, "You mean worry doesn't work?" And I said, no. And she was blown away. She was blown away. And it made her realize that we're not anxious, we're not depressed. We just have thinking about those things. We have anxious thinking. We have worried thinking. We have depressed thinking. We have angry thinking. But it's not who we are. You know, as my father's talking about, when it clears, when those thoughts clear, we come back to our true self and to that wisdom and that well-being. And that's something I want to touch on quickly is when our thoughts clear, we have access to more than what's in our little heads that we use to think all the time. When our minds are clear and we're more present, we're connected to the natural intelligence of this universe. And that's what my dad's talking about in terms of spirituality, is that we are part of a natural intelligence. And we all get glimpses of that all day. We all have had that experience of having a good idea when it just pops into your head, or the experience of just having a deep knowing about something. And when our mind's clear, we have more access to that. And it brings with it those feelings of joy and contentment and satisfaction. And, you know, I know, and this is a little experiment that I like to do for myself. And this is how I know how we're all connected. When I go into the grocery store, my local grocery store, because you know I like to cook, and so often I'll have to go get ingredients. I don't just do one shop a week. I generally go a lot. And if I go into the grocery store and I'm in my head and I'm in my thinking, I just go and I get what I need and I leave. When my thoughts are clear, when my head is more clear, I go into that store and I feel connected to almost everybody I see. I might, have a conversation with someone about the produce. I'll go check out and have a nice conversation with the salesperson, checking me out. And I feel that connection that we all have. And so I love how my dad's talking about if we find our well-being and give it away, that will change the world. That will help other people feel less lost
Hmm.
because we're all connected. And we're all connected to this universal intelligence. And in the three principles, we talk about this as mind. That we're connected to something bigger than ourselves, more intelligent than ourselves. And when we can free up our thinking and be in the present moment, it touches us. And we have new ideas. We know what we need to do. We know that we shouldn't react in the moment, and we need to wait sometimes.
Nina, I'm thinking we've talked plenty, and I would really like to spend the rest of our time talking with people here. So, uh, this is an opportunity for any of you to share what you've been hearing as we've been talking, or if you have any questions at all about what we've been talking about. We'd love to hear, and then we'll see if what we can do here. Lisa, hi, Lisa.
Hello, it's nice to be with both of you.
Uh,
Um, I do have a question around I've been in conversations recently with people like parents who either have adopted children or autistic children, and they're really struggling. They're finding things hard, they're feeling really disconnected. And I found myself being a listening ear and a compassionate ear. And also, there's a tension in me of what more can I do?
Mm.
It's almost like wanting they're wanting to change the circumstances and externally. So that's what's present for me, and I'd love both of your thoughts on this, actually.
Well, it's very common when we're listening to people to to get into our thinking about their story.
Mm.
That's very common. It's in a sense, it's part of listening as we become aware of when we start feeling some tension while we're listening. And that's a good thing. It's an invitation back to the now.
Mm.
It's not a problem. It happens to everybody I know in the helping relationship. Brings us back to a deeper feeling, but it's very helpful, and it's very helpful to realize when our minds quiet down, we're in a deeper feeling. This deeper intelligence comes through that feeling. It brings us new and fresh things to say to people that surprise us in how we respond to people, or it brings to mind a story that ends up being perfect for that person. That's why we talk about wisdom, is that deeper intelligence. It's built into us, if you will. So that's one thing, Lisa. It's just that's the most ordinary thing in the world to have those kind of to get into our own thinking while someone tells their story. We get drawn into that in a sense. And I know Nina can talk a lot about because she worked with autistic kids and their families. So maybe I'll let you. I have thoughts about that too, Nina. But go ahead with what occurs to you about that.
Well, I just want to reiterate a little bit about what you said about listening. Um, and for me, that's been something that I've been working on as I started my own practice and as I've just dealt with relationships, is really trying to listen with nothing on my mind. And so when I have a session with a client or I'm listening to a friend and I find myself getting into my own trying to figure out how to solve it or or having my own opinions about it, I just try to keep coming back to a place of nothing on my mind. Because I know that, as my dad said, things that'll occur to me out of that space will be more responsive to the moment. And in trusting my own wisdom, I'm also trusting the wisdom of whomever I'm talking to. And I think when I can be grounded in my own wisdom, it gives them more space to find their own. Because I mean, in talking about autistic children and adoptive children, I don't have all the answers for that. Like I don't have all the answers from any client that I work with. I know that they have the answers because it's their life. And so I would guide them in a way that points them to their own wisdom about how to deal with those situations because they'll know better than me. And it's that trust that everybody has this. And sometimes we forget that or we think that we need to be the expert if we're listening to someone with a problem. But really, it's been an actual big relief for me to realize that, yeah, I don't have the answers for people. When I work with clients, I don't have answers for them, but I can guide them in a way that points them to their own wisdom so that they can figure it out for themselves. And that's always going to be a better solution than something that I come up with. Is that helpful at all?
Yeah, well, yes. Yeah, I'm kind of listening to myself as you're speaking. And I was in conversation with someone today, and it occurred to me, there's a book that I read years ago that came to mind. I don't know why, maybe this was why. It came to mind a few days ago. And then I found myself in conversation today with somebody talking about her autistic child, that she felt so much responsibility around keeping her safe.
Yeah.
And I was like, do you read much? And she said, not really. And I was like, would you be interested in reading a book if I shared it with you? And so I sent her Gail Noble's book, because I remember reading it many years ago and just feeling really moved by what you're pointing to around the kind of not anywhere to get. There's not anywhere to get to.
Right.
But it's just this deep love and compassion for this human being that I'm sharing this earth with. And that was my take from reading the book, of like, gosh, there's no problem to solve here. And it's just being that light for someone, and being that like full radical acceptance of ourselves exactly as we are. And so that kind of is what occurred to me today to share the book. I didn't articulate it the way that I articulate it now, but obviously that's kind of what was guiding me to my move, if you like.
That's
Um,
beautiful.
yeah, I think sometimes it's just helpful to speak out the tension,
Mhm.
because when you hear it, you can love it more sometimes. Um, but yeah, I was interested. I found myself on this call the day that I'd had that conversation. A couple of days after it, I'd remembered that book, and I knew your background as well, Nina, and obviously Dicken had worked with you. So I thought, who better to bring this question to than you guys? So yeah,
Well, and it's been really helpful for me, because I did a podcast once with someone who sort of specializes in ADHD, and even though we have different, our brains might function differently as humans across the spectrum. It's still all working the same, that we have a thought and it creates a feeling. That's the same for everybody. And so it's when I can look at it from that perspective, that we are all just working the way that we're supposed to work. We all are having thoughts, and it's creating our experience, moment to moment, every moment. Then it makes a commonality instead of a difference. And as you said, there's nowhere to go. We're already there. We already have what we need. And I think people forget that. And I think pointing people to that is really empowering, that they have what they need. They have access to what they need in each moment. But it's okay to get lost,
mm,
because then we have our feelings as a compass to guide us back.
yeah, I think when the first year that I heard about the principles, and I was working with Aaron Turner, and I kept having this little niggly thought of like, but do you have to believe in spirituality for this to work?
Mm-mm.
And I think sometimes I land there when I'm talking to people who don't necessarily have a spiritual understanding or belief, and that idea of what we're pointing to around well-being, without that feels a little tricky to articulate, because it's that essence. So that my understanding is it's like the essence of who we are, but that's not this body. It's something beyond, it's something greater. And so when I'm in conversations with someone around, I feel responsible for keeping my vulnerable child safe because they don't have the same wiring and they are very trusting of everybody, and that puts them in positions that compromises their safety. Like, they're the kind of conversations that I'm finding myself in. And if someone was in the principles world, if this is how it's kind of looking to me, I'm just speaking it as I'm thinking it. If someone was in the principles world, there's places I could point to around that. And I remember somebody from USM speaking about a conversation they'd had with someone who said, I'm going to take my life if you do this thing. And the person was very clear inside of themselves that that's not my responsibility. I don't want you to do that. And they were clear that my responsibility doesn't extend there. But I find it harder when it's a parent and child who's wrapped up in this. Like, I'm very responsible for their physical safety.
Yeah. But I still think that their common sense and their own wisdom, and that doesn't need to be spiritual. That's just sort of practical, that we all have common sense. And we all know our children better than anybody else. And that when we can focus less on the worry about it and fall into a place of looking for an answer, that's common sense. And that those parents are going to know how to protect their kids, and they're going to do the best that they can. And that's the thing about being human, is that we do the best that we can in each moment, given our understanding. And that's going to go up and down.
Yeah, that's helpful.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be spiritual, I don't think. I think it can be just very practical, that we all have common sense, we all have access to new thinking, and that when we don't get as caught up in our worry, we can better find that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a good example. Spiritual beliefs are not what people point toward when they talk about spiritual. If someone holds on to a spiritual belief, they can be just as caught up in thought as anybody else. They're wedded to their ideas, wedded to their beliefs. Everybody I know has experienced, like when we fall asleep at night, we let go of everything we think and believe. We drop into a space that's very quiet and beautiful and expansive, and we don't have concepts about ourselves or life. If you go beyond that space, you go to sleep. But if you drop into that space, you're wide awake and alert still. Any human being, I found out when I work with 4-year-olds, 96-year-olds, people who have been on spiritual journeys, who are wedded to all kinds of beliefs. Same thing is happening. People get caught up in ideas, beliefs, concepts. So that's why in any true spiritual teaching, the first thing that's going to be talked about is we have to understand what it's like to go beyond all of our beliefs. We do it every night when we fall asleep. It's not a big deal. We do it every time we drop deeply into the present moment. We do it every time when we're listening deeply, because you can't think and listen at the same time. And then there's this space that if you pay attention to what you drop into, it feels very open and expansive. You won't find boundaries on it. That's experiencing what we're pointing to rather than thinking about it. So I'm working with a couple, and they were both fundamentalist ministers. And if I talk to them about beliefs, because they saw all human beings as sinners and they saw everybody. And if I talked with them about belief, we would have argued from the get-go because I have very different beliefs than they do. But I didn't want to talk about beliefs at all because they came to me because they were suffering. They had adopted two teenage boys, and they thought if they could just be kind to these boys, and these boys were hellions. they were they were just so caught up in painful thoughts and memories that they were acting out left and right. They would break things. They would sneak out every night. They would get drunk all the time. And the parents started off trying to be they were trying to be conceptually what they thought being spiritual was. And they were going crazy. And finally they're yelling and screaming at their kids, and the kids are screaming at them. And so they came to see me, and as the parents understood better what you just talked about, Lisa, that suddenly a thought can come in that creates a reaction, and that's normal, and that can happen to anybody. And it makes a difference whether we're aware of the fact that we're getting involved in that thinking or we're not. Nina keeps talking about coming back to the present, and then that thought fades away and you become resilient. Well, as these parents learned more about the power of thought, and they learned about innate well-being, and they learned about in that deeper quiet space, there's intelligence built into that space. And it shows up as common sense, as intuition, as new and fresh thinking, as creativity, as possibility. They started dropping into that space more frequently with their kids, so they had something different to bring their kids, different feeling and different thoughts, different ideas. And before you know it, they were living with an understanding that allowed them to connect with more compassion and more love to their kids. And the kids got affected by that, as does anybody when you bring love and compassion to them that's genuine. So they still had some reactions, but now they took responsibility for them. They stopped sneezing on their kids from that place, and they started looking for this space inside of them where they just suddenly knew better what to do that you can't find from a book. And then the two ministers got transferred to another place, and they said, they interviewed me for 3 days before they would even come to see me because they had been taught that psychology was a workshop of the devil, and it taught people to only depend on themselves and not on God. And they were frightened of me. And at the very last session, they said, well, we're going to have to leave, but we don't want to work with anybody else other than a 3P therapist. Who can you recommend in this other state? But then they said, we just have one more question. It was so funny. We just have one more question. It appears to us that you think people innately have well-being rather than we're born sinners. And as you know, that we've been taught that people are born sinners. And I said, can you think of one time when I tried to persuade you to believe what I believe? They said, no. And I said, why would I start now? I have no idea. I have no interest in talking to you about beliefs.
Thank you, both of you.
Thanks, Lisa. It's so good to see you, sweetie.
Yeah,
Take care. Hi, Selma. You made it.
Yes, I made it. 5 minutes later, but I did.
Good.
Hey, Dicken.
Hi, hi, hi.
I actually wanted to say something to Lisa also, because I'm working with autistic children as well, and I'm a music therapist. So the last child I had today was an artist, and actually, I today because I was going here, I had the three Ps much more in mind also during this session, and I was again noticing how sensitive he is, um, how I'm feeling. Like when I tense up, he tenses up and he is like watching, and if I'm just in my well-being and love, then he is just freely doing what he's doing, or he's even giving attention, and there is a small connection between, so like real there is connection in another way also during the whole session, but then real communication between us when I drop into the well-being. So because in the beginning you said, mentioned the connection that the parents you're coaching, they feel so little connection. So I wondered if those parents know the three principles. So, like Dickens said in the end, that if they can fall into the well-being, then this would spread to the kids. And that's what I'm noticing a lot, especially with autistic kids. They're so, so sensitive, and that makes so much. So it's just like the mood which is spreading, just like the energy, the atmosphere, but also when my mind is quieting down, then I can see again what they are doing and not interpreting this in my neuro. I'm not neurotypical either, but in a neurotypical way, so that I can maybe see what the kid is doing and not feeling disconnected because I'm in a completely different world, but really can see why the kid is behaving as it behaves now. And in this moment, I'm feeling connected again.
Mm.
So that's,
Mm.
oh,
Yeah.
just want to
Thank
say.
you, Edmund. Thank you. That's beautiful. Jean, hi.
Hi, Dickon. Hi, Nina.
Hi, Jean.
So I have a question. I've been finding myself like I know it's not possible to feel good all the time, but yet I still find myself sometimes with this hope and this expectation of like, oh, but I want to be in a good feeling all the time. And and sometimes with the 3P understanding, I have these judgmental thoughts of like, well, I'm creating this
Yeah.
uncomfortable experience. So I almost like blame myself. I have judgment around that, like I'm doing this. And but when I step out of it, I'm like, oh, but it's not like I'm doing it on purpose. But I still have those self-judgmental thoughts. And so I guess where I'm at is like, how do I give up the hope of wanting to be in that good feeling all the time?
Oh, I want to take this one, Dad.
Okay.
I would too. So you go first, sweetie.
Oh my gosh, Jean, I suffered from the same affliction of having a lot of thinking around. I learned this when I was 14. I should know better. I'm creating my experience in this moment. It's me, and I know that, but I still feel bad. And so there was a lot of judgment. And what I realized about that is that when I had those judgmental thoughts, it was just keeping me in that place. It was keeping me in those bad feelings that I was feeling judgmental about. It was like pushing me down. It was like putting a blanket on top of it so that I couldn't find my way out. And that, I think that's something that happens when we know the three principles for some people. We do get those judgmental thoughts. But the other thing that was really helpful for me was just the acceptance that even when I'm in a bad feeling, I'm still working exactly how we work. I'm still functioning perfectly psychologically. And to me, there was some acceptance that the lows are okay, that there's something that we can see in the lows. There's something, it's not when we can move out of it more gracefully, there's there can be beauty in sadness. We can find motivation through anger. There are some good things that come, and And to me, it was just this huge realization that the point is not to be happy all the time. The point is to understand that I'm the thinker and that I'm creating it. And when I have that realization and when I truly understand that, I find myself in a better state more of the time. But yes, I just want you to know that you're not alone in having those judgmental thoughts. And I've worked with other clients who are like, "Yeah, I know the three principles and I was doing so well." And then, it's like we get to this point where we know enough, but that's just an invitation to go deeper. That's an invitation that there's still more to see. And that's what's so exciting about the three principles is that there's always more to see. We can always go deeper. We can always see it differently. And so when we get judgmental about it, that's an invitation that there's still more for us to see.
One of the things I want to say to you, Jean, is don't ever lose hope. Because as you jump to higher levels of understanding, how you define good feeling is going to change. In the same way, someone can look out the window and say there's good weather and bad weather. They judge it. Well, I don't like it. It's raining. What's wrong? I don't want it to rain. It shouldn't rain. And as your understanding deepens, you can appreciate any weather. You don't judge it.
Yeah.
So another way of saying this is the only thing that makes any feeling bad is your concepts. You judge it with concepts. We're in our conceptual mind. And as Sid Banks would remind me, we're always one thought away from disengaging from our conceptual mind. And now I'm just feeling without a label. So you have two people who feel really upset. And one person is thinking about it and going, oh, I'm upset. I'm creating it. What's wrong with me? I shouldn't feel this way. And the other person is just present in that feeling. And there's no judgment. One is healthy. The other isn't. You could even define, I can be happy even when I can have peace of mind even when I'm in a low mood, even when I feel horrible. So then that's why sometimes they would say it's not where you are that matters, it's your level of understanding. And true understanding is love. Love is the absence of judgment. So if you're feeling bad and you have no thinking about it, no judgment, you're like a baby. Babies don't judge their experience, they just have it. I want to become more like a baby as I get older rather than someone who's thinking about what's good and bad and right and wrong, and I should feel this and I shouldn't feel that. And the paradox is, this is what I love about this. When I'm thinking, when I'm feeling, it contracts. I'm a thought away from not holding thought, from disengaging from the conceptual mind. Eckhart Tolle says that's the first step in spiritual understanding. You disengage from the conceptual mind. That's Sid Banks saying you have to go beyond concepts and beliefs in order to understand anything I'm talking about. And so when we take that step, the paradox, the beauty is that the feeling that we're contracting when we're present and not holding thought is just energy, and it starts to expand. Any feeling. So you can be angry, you can be hurt, you can be upset, and in a moment of pure presence, it's just energy expanding. You'll have all the common sense you need to deal with things, even though it looks to other people like you're upset and angry and hurt, and you're at a higher level of consciousness. You're still having moods, but you're at a higher level of consciousness, so you have more understanding of how this system works. So that's why I say keep your hope. you will be able to find that peace of mind is always available to you, or what some people call a spiritual understanding of happiness is different than a psychological understanding of happiness. One is judgmental. One is saying, I don't like it when it rains. It shouldn't rain. The other is saying, oh, it's raining. Oh, wow. Well, we need rain in order for there to be growth, and it wouldn't be green without rain. And I love green. And it's actually, if I'm not in a judgmental mind, a rainy day can be beautiful. So keep your hope that you keep seeing deeper, beyond definitions, beyond concepts, what life is like as it is, not as you conceptually think it should be, as it is. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
I remember having an insight about judging our moods and judging our feelings. And I realized that it's all neutral, but we assign value to it. And I don't know, one morning I woke up and I was really feeling uncomfortable. I was newly divorced and my daughter goes back and forth now, so I only have her every other week. And the weeks that I don't have her, I'm by myself. And this was a new feeling and I was just uncomfortable with it. And then I opened my email and there was this email from Michael Neal, and he was talking about sort of about living life all in. And it was about he said something about wanting to laugh all the laughter and cry all the tears. And it hit me in that moment that part of life was having those uncomfortable feelings. And it was okay. And it was normal and natural. And I saw in that moment that when we place judgment on it, it it keeps us in that place. And it made me start thinking. I got really excited. I was like, what if we could teach children not to be afraid of their feelings? How often do you see a parent telling a child, don't be sad, don't cry, don't cry, it's okay, it's okay. So we have these habits of thinking about moods and about feelings that we've learned, but it's just a habit. And when we can see our habits, like judgment is a habit, and when you can see, oh, there I go again, it sort of becomes comical in a way. When you can catch yourself. It's like with worry. Like if you're a worrier and you find yourself sliding, it's like a groove on a record, you just slide into it. But when you can catch yourself, it takes you out. So it's all okay. And that's what's so exciting to me about life, is that really we're meant to feel this huge range of emotion. And when we do, we're just working. So it really is all okay.
Hmm. Oh, I thank you both so much. I really needed to hear everything you said. And yeah, really.
You can see how closely we relate to your
Mhm.
question is.
Yeah, we both got really excited about that one.
I almost didn't ask it because I was like, oh, this is so embarrassing. Like I should have seen this by
No,
now, but
No,
it's
no,
like there's
no.
always more to see around this. Yeah.
Yeah, there
and
is.
it's so common. You're not alone in like having judgmental thoughts about thinking that you should be able to do it differently.
Yeah, and I love the distinction between spiritual happiness and psychological happiness. Yeah. Never thought.
Yeah. One
Beautiful.
is conditional, the other is unconditional. One has labels, one has no labels. One is childlike,
Mm.
just comfortable in our own skin, not trying to control the thoughts that come into our head, but understanding so that you don't get holding on to them in a way that creates suffering. One is learning to go through your ups and downs gracefully. One is struggling and judging and trying to be high all the time. It's what some people call spiritual bypass.
Hmm.
I see. As You get to be human and being, and they're all connected. It's all one.
Yeah, I have one just little quote that I want to say before I forget. You are never lost in life. You are just lost in thinking about life.
Mm.
That's nice. Given what we've been talking about, that's
Yeah.
perfect, Nina. Awesome,
Thank
sweetie.
you.
Thank you, Gene. Take
Looks like
care.
Scott has a question.
Yeah. Hi, Scott.
Yeah, hi there. My question is, I mean, I have a bit of familiarity with the three principles, and I've really enjoyed. I've written down a whole load of insights from
Mm,
what you guys have said. My question is, why aren't we? I mean, I'm based in the UK, and you guys are in the US. I mean, to what extent are these ideas shared with young people in school?
mm.
Because it seems I come across so many young people who struggle with exactly what we're talking about here.
Well, I used to know everybody that was sharing the principles in schools, and now there's people in every country that I know of.
Hmm.
There are 20 international 3P communities all over the world. There are people in every one of those communities that are trying to bring this or are bringing this into schools.
Hmm.
When I started, that's one of the first things I did. I had started my career as for 6 years, I taught high school English. And the
Hmm.
reason I got interested in psychology was I had so many kids coming to me with their problems.
Hmm.
And I went back and got my master's in counseling education. Then I went back and got my doctorate in counseling psychology, I mean.
Hmm.
And then I became licensed as a psychologist. And it was because I wanted to find out what to share with people who were struggling so that they could have an easier time of thing.
Hmm.
See, that's the philosophy in education. Nobody's ill. I don't talk about in the educational view of people who are struggling. They just haven't learned what they need to learn through insight to have an easier time of life.
Hmm.
And so I started going into schools. I started bringing this into as many schools as I could. And then there are people bringing it into elementary schools, middle schools, high schools, universities.
Hmm.
And it just takes time, Scott. I mean,
Hmm.
it's like anything else that comes into the world. When a new paradigm comes into the world,
Hmm.
it typically has taken about 80 years. I think that's accelerating because of
Hmm.
the internet. And uh, uh, I can not only go to countries all over the world, but I can talk with people in any country on the internet and
Hmm.
share this. And so it is. And you're right. Kids pick up on this very
Hmm.
quickly.
Hmm.
Kids love learning something that helps them be less caught up in stressful thinking or
Hmm.
insecure thinking.
Sure.
I wish I'd learned this when I was in high school. I did so well in sports, but I was so insecure socially and
Me
with
too.
girls and I
Hmm.
joke around that my wife was the first woman I could comfortably talk to, and that it was just like
Hmm.
I was very socially awkward and had a lot of social anxiety. And when I learned the principles, I was 40 years old,
Hmm.
and now kids are learning this. Kids are growing up with this, like Nina has.
Well, I mean, it's gratifying to hear that. I mean, particularly in the US, but I mean, in the UK, you mentioned the word paradigm, and the paradigm of our educational system is essentially about exams and
Mhm.
school league tables.
Yes, yes,
So
yeah.
and that puts young people under huge pressure. So I mean, I really just wanted to say that these three, I wish I could see in the UK these three principles more
Well, there's
widespread.
look up an organization called iHeart.
I heart.
iHeart.
Mm.
They're bringing this into hundreds of schools in the
Oh, really? Okay.
But to your point, Scott, it's not widespread yet.
Mm. Sure.
There's small pockets everywhere. And it does make sense to teach this to kids.
Mm. Yeah.
It really does. Because they're so much, they don't have as much habitual thinking.
No. They
And
haven't got
so
into
it's,
those bad habits yet.
yeah.
Mm.
And so it'd be great to catch them early and before we get these ingrained ways of thinking.
Mm.
So anybody on this call who's inspired to go bring this into the schools.
Hey, I want to have you meet a friend of mine who's here, Leonce, and he's bringing this into schools in Africa.
Mm.
And so
Okay.
I'm gonna thank you for that question. And
Sure. Pleasure.
oh, you're welcome. Leonce, hi. Can you unmute or I can unmute you?
Yes, I hope everyone can listen to me.
Good. We can hear you fine, Leonce. Oh, it's so
Yeah,
good
thank
to
you.
see you again.
Yeah. I just want to help with the question of Mr. Scott. My name is Leons. I'm in Africa, Naki Valley refugee camp in Uganda, but I'm originally from the Democratic Republic of Congo. I ended up becoming a refugee in Uganda a long time ago when there was very much going on in my country, and I ended up being a refugee. I was forced to be a refugee because I had to run for my life. I had to run for survival to become a refugee. And right now, it's have been like 3 years. I'm learning the three principles. And this year have been a very best year for me. I'm learning the three principles very deeply with Deacon, and which is very wonderful. Yeah, I want to share a little bit of the experience with the students basically, which are at school with the three principles. I personally study and want to understand so much about the principles. So, there is a time this year I texted Deacon and I told Deacon that I want to go back to school. I want to go and have some knowledge about school. I don't want to remain in a refugee camp. Can you help me with that? And Deacon was like, yeah, sure, you can do that. As long as you think that will make you happy. So I thought that if I go back to school, I'm going to be happy. And honestly, I was feeling that when I go back to school, because I was going to a Ugandan school, because I live in Uganda and I am a refugee. And I was thinking that I am going to get bullied by Ugandans because they are happy, they're in their country, they are studying, they have their homes, they are happy, but I am a happy person. I thought that I am very unhappy because I lost my home in my country, I lost my family, I ended up being a refugee in Uganda. And I thought that I am going to be the unhappiest person at my school. And I thought that I'm not going to have good grades because I thought that, right, I am the stressed person. I am the most stressed person at school. So I am going there. They're Ugandans. They have their country. They have good homes. They have lovely families. They have to have good grades. So what am I going to do there? I just have to go and do my best. So when I reached there, I found it very, very opposite because the truth is that the Ugandans, the colleagues I have, which are Ugandans, were not really happy. Everyone I tried to talk to was like, I know I'm not happy. I want to immigrate. I don't want to live in Uganda forever. I want to go somewhere. I want to go to the US. I want to go in different places in the world. So I'm not satisfied with what I'm having in Uganda. I'm not satisfied being a student here. As well, I want to be an international student. I want to go in the US, study in the US. So I'm not happy. So the thing I ended up understanding is happiness is not about what happened to us from outside. Because I ended up understanding that all the things I was thinking before going to school, I was thinking that I am going to be the unhappiest person at school because I was thinking of the circumstances or the things I passed through in my country. But honestly, It wasn't that everyone at my school, because they're Ugandans and they have their homes here, they're going to be the happiest people. No, they were not happy. They were not happy because deep inside themselves, they was not satisfied with what they have. So happiness comes from a satisfying mind, that you have to develop a positive thinking. It is not something we have to think, because I talked to Dicken last week and I told Dicken that there is a time I visited someone who is dealing with a very serious anxiety here. She's a mom. She comes from the Republic of Congo, the same country as I come from. And she suffered with so much anxiety. She lost all her children in the war. There is a very harsh ongoing war in the Eastern Congo right now, which is the M23 attacking the Democratic Republic of Congo on Eastern. And the mom was the victim. She lost all her family there. She lost the husband, she lost her children, and right now she's in the refugee camp. The first time when I went to talk to her about the three principles, I was trying to be intellectual with her. I was talking because at that time I memorized the three principles as a lesson, as a mathematical lesson. I memorized that I have to go to her and teach her 1+1 as a mathematical, because I realized that happiness, I can teach someone happiness according to what Dickens told me. But that wasn't true, because when I went to talk to the mom, she was not happy with me and she didn't want to talk to me anything. She said, please, you just have to go. I don't want to talk about anything which happened to me. And I am very happy with everything right now. But I tried sharing that story to Deacon. Deacon shared to me, you don't have to understand the three principles intellectually. You don't have to go and share to someone, or you want to help someone who is dealing with anxiety. You're telling him what you have memorized about the three principles. You have to use your wisdom. You have to be able to share your story with him. You have to make him feel cared. You have to make him that you understand what he's feeling. You understand what he's holding inside himself. So I went there the last week. I went back to the mom. And the first thing I did, I shared him my story. I told her that I am also from the Democratic Republic of Congo. And also I lost my father. I lost my brother there. And right now my mother is paralyzed because she was raped by the rebels attacking the Eastern Congo. When I explained to her about my situation and my experience, because it was my experience, she felt very cared. She felt that she's cared because the only response she gave to me is, oh, you also went through all this. How did you manage to keep the smile in your face? How did you manage to smile up to date if you really went all through this? I told her, because happiness is free. Happiness is free. It does not come from anything of outside. Anything from outside, it affects our happiness when we have to think about it negatively, when we have to hold on that thought, when we don't learn to forgive ourselves, we feel very, very unhappy. So it is the same with children at school. When I went to school, I thought that I am going to be a very unhappy person because I was just a refugee, a regular refugee coming to an international school. And I thought that I am going to be bullied there. But when I reached there, I realized that I was actually the happiest person there. No one was happy as I was. So I ended up understanding that it's true. Happiness is inside us. And when we have to be honest and very real with ourselves, we feel very happy. It is not about being in any circumstance in life. It is what is inside ourselves. That's where happiness comes from. It's very free. Thank you so much.
Oh,
Thank you, Leons. Oh my God.
what a
I
wonderful way
love
to
that
end.
story. I love you. This is a clear example of when the student becomes the teacher. Oh man, that's delightful. I really appreciate you being here today and you telling that story. And I can't think of a more perfect way to end our webinar today. Can you, Nina?
No, that was so touching. I was tearing up just because I felt your happiness and I felt your understanding how deep it is. And to hear you say that it's not circumstance, it's always in us, that was so powerful and just a perfect way to end today's because it points to the fact that we're never lost. So the title of this webinar was Lost and Found, but we're never lost. We always have our well-being. We always can come home to that. Thank you.
Thank thank you so much. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, Lance. Thanks for your sharing. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, well, keep the hope.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Loved having you here today, and this was wonderful to be with you all.
Thank you both so much. That was lovely.
Oh, you're welcome.
Oh, thank
Thanks.
you all for being here. And we will make the recording available. My dad posts everything on his YouTube channel.
Okay. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Happy holidays.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you
Bye.
so much.
Oh, you're welcome, Soma. Glad you could make it. Take care, everybody. Bye, Lance.
Hi. Thank you.
Thank you.